자, 안녕하십니까. 자, 스티븐 박입니다. 제가 3년 전에 썼던 영특의 정석이라는 그 영어특기자 및 국제학부 수시 입시 준비생들을 위한 지침서에 대한 그 후속작 책이 나왔습니다. 그래서 소개를 해드리려고 하는데요. 그래서 이 앞서 제가 그 촬영을 한 이 일반 그 소개 영상에 더해서 그 해외에서 오래 거주한 그런 학생들이 이해를 잘 못하는 경우들이 있어서, 또 제가 수업 방식이 보통 영어를 주로 쓰는 그런 방식으로 뭐 국제학부에 입시가 이루어진 후에 English only policy를 쓰죠. 국제학부라는 데가 EOP policy. 그런 수업 환경에도 맞고, 또 실기시험 인터뷰나 에세이 시험 자체가 영어로 100% 이루어지기 때문에 그런 거에 대비하기 위한 그런 그 수업 방식을 그렇게 쓰는데, 그래서 잘 이해가 안 되는 학생들이 있을 수 있기 때문에 영어로 간단히 이 책에 대한 특성, 장점 이런 걸 좀 설명드리겠습니다. 자, 영특트레이너, 선생님 뭐 English Specialty Admission Trainer 또는 뭐 Personal Trainer for getting admitted into the so-called DIS, Division of International Studies, and the English Honors Program. Now, in the admissions, in early admissions, 자, 좀 설명을 드리겠는데요. For whom is this book written? Now, it's for anyone, any student who is preparing to apply for the so-called Division of International Studies and English specialty-based early admission programs in Korean universities, usually major Korean universities like Yonsei University, Korea University, Ewha Women's University, and also Hanyang University, Gyeonggi University, and so forth. Now, it doesn't matter whether you are preparing for an admission program that has an interview format exam or essay format, because this book covers both. Yeah. The features of this book, let me explain it to you by looking at the beginning part of the book, which contains the information about the about the features of this book and how to use this book too. So first of all, this book is very comprehensively written. So it covers everything. It covers the part about how to set your admission application strategy, how to select some of the realistic target schools, as well as possibly your reach schools or long shot schools, and as well as the so-called safety schools. And then 5 parts. So the part about the application guidelines and selection of schools, possibly based on some recent years data, by the way, careful and objective and scientific analysis of the data. And then interview training, essay training, and then the so-called ISED, Integrated in Science and Engineering Division at Yonsei University, UIC, Underwood International College. They have their own type of interview exam using scientific passages that are not really about science, by the way. You don't need to be knowledgeable in the field of science. It's more like SAT or ACT scientific reading passages, but you have to understand them, process the data in your mind quickly, and get ready to present them in ways that make sense in terms of explaining the relationships or possible predictions or conclusions that can be drawn from the data. So those are the kinds of training that will be given in part 4, which is ISED, the Science and Engineering Division interview training. And then, important part, the PQ, the personal question training. So it's more of an informal interview process, asking you about your backgrounds, your interests, your values, your personalities, your major experiences, your major accomplishments in life. So how to effectively approach those. And then there is also the SOP training, Statement of Purpose or Self-Introduction training, 자소서 training. It's more like writing essays in the common application for applying for the universities in the United States. So some insightful advice about how to approach the questions and how to sort of how to approach and come up with strategies that will make you shine out of the herds of people, herds of applicants, how to make you stand out of the crowd. Now, the part one, again, based on recent years' data, careful, very scientific analysis of them, we give you some guidelines as to what kind of schools that you can choose to apply for. And you have to be careful, much more so than the US universities, because you have limits of 6 universities to apply for in early admissions in Korea. So it'll help you decide what kind of schools, what universities will be your realistic reach, or maybe what universities and what programs should be your realistic target programs to apply for. And then interview training, and then followed by essay training, interview training. The book gives you insightful ideas about what kinds of passages you can expect to get on the actual exam, and also how to process the information given in the passages efficiently, and also how to formulate, how to organize your answers in a very convincing, logical ways, and also how to present them effectively too, using the right kinds of expressions for the right occasions. And then the essay training, very similar too. The analyzing the essays for many 2 universities that are using this format of exam, the Hanyang University and Dongguk University. By each school, we analyze the types and the kinds of instructions that you can expect. And also we give you insightful advice or guidance on how to respond to the instructions based on the passages. Sort of the logical connection between the reading as well as reading and the instructions, how they are connected and how you can respond, again, in a logical, convincing ways to present a very efficient and very impressive essays that will be in line with the intended direction of answers that the professors had in mind when they selected the passages and wrote the questions. Now, in the ISCD part, we don't really give you a whole lot of scientific or mathematical or statistical knowledge or formulas. We do give you training in how to digest the data effectively and in a relatively short period of time, and then how to process them in your mind and how to effectively present them and use them as part of your answers to the questions that are given. And then PQ training, again, type analysis, and then different approaches, perspectives, insights about what kinds of rough ideas you can have ready in response to some of the questions that frequently come out in the personal question and type interviews. Now, how can you use this book effectively? Now, if you are using this as a self-guidance book, or maybe you are using this book as part of my online courses that will be offered through the website of Interprep, and then, or maybe you'll be using this as a way to have some additional studies or some supplementary studies after taking my offline courses. Whatever may be the case, you can approach it this way. First of all, when you have to set the direction, or you have to choose the universities to apply for based on part 1, and then you have to decide which part you will focus, the essay exam type or the interview exam type. And then for both parts, for both types of exams, you can go for the so-called try and retry approach, or try and retry system that I call. Now, this is essentially the same method that I use in my offline lectures too, offline classes with my students. So this means that when you get the practice questions or example part and exercise questions, try it. It's more like a Socratic method of giving you questions and making you wonder before you can get to the answers, or before you are given the answers, or maybe you will never be given the answers, but the processes of having the inquisitive mind, having the wondering process, going through the wondering process themselves will be very educational, enlightening too sometimes. So you do it. Even if you don't come up with the right answers or very impressive, logical sounding answers, that's fine. You're there to learn. And making a mistake is actually better than just getting it right the first time, because there's more to realize and learn. So you can do it and then read the coaching part, the hints about how to approach the question, and then read the part that explains the answers, and then the sample answers are there for you. So read the sample questions and have sort of a self-feedback process. So based on the sample, and you can realize what you did right or wrong. You compare the sample with the your initial answers, and then have some processes of realization. Oh, I should have said this. I should have written that or this. And then after the process, try to, instead of just getting it over with and never looking at it again, revisit it, review it. Especially the sample answers, try to record it. These days you have smartphones, computers, laptops, tablet computers that have recording functions, voice recording functions, right? So try to record the sample answers and try to listen to yourself too. By the way, when you record your own voice and listen to it as it's played, now it probably sounds very strange. And sometimes often people don't like their recorded voices, but the bad news, by the way, people, is that that's the voice that other people hear. But the good news is that it's not weird, it's not strange for others. It's strange for you because you're not used to listening to your real voice, which is heard without the direct vibration from your vocal cord to the eardrums. But the good news again is that when other people hear it, they think that it's okay. It's just the way it is. That's the natural voice that you have. So don't worry, don't be so conscious about having some weird voice that you don't want to listen to. Actually, it may even be the case that if you listen to your own recorded voice and go through the reviewing process, it may actually be a stimulating experience because the voice is so different from what you think it is. So record it, or maybe rewrite the sample answers, make it your own expressions, and realize the logical structures of the sample answers and logical content and the good expressions, the very effective, possibly impressive expressions that you can use on the actual interviews and essays. So go through the reviewing process and make the expressions, make the samples truly yours. So that's how you can, those are the features of the book and how you can use the book. Now again, let me explain to you the composition of the book. It gives you the type analysis, the kinds of types of questions that you can expect to see on the actual exams, and this is a very organized and systematic approach. Instead of beating around the bush, you know what to expect and what kinds of major formats of questions that you have to prepare in advance so that you will not miss any area or kind and caught by surprise. And then there's the coaching tips, of course. This is the part where the practical hints are given for the questions, and this will give you the clues, the core ideas that you need to understand in order to approach and comprehend the questions and eventually get it over with and get the right questions delivered. Then finally there are the samples again. These samples are what essentially make the book very practical one instead of a theoretical or an abstract one. So we pride in ourselves, me and my co-author take pride in the fact that this book is very practical with abundance of samples. the samples that students can actually try to use in the actual interview or essay situations, not some very literary or rhetorical expressions that sound like novels or sound like literature reports, but these are actual expressions that you can realistically use in the actual interviews and essays too. So these are the composition of the book, main features, and the part that you can expect to use in this book. Now, the content. The first part is about application strategy. Again, selecting the universities that are well within your reach, and so the ones that should be the realistic targets, the reach schools that are higher than what you can expect to get, and then possibly the safety schools that sometimes the consultants call them insurance schools. So maybe one or two of them you can have just to make sure that you don't totally fail and you're left with nothing, nowhere to go. Now, part two, the interview training, 4 different major types, like the type about the graphs and data you have to explain, and types about summarizing the main points, and types about answering some specific questions or explaining some parts of the passage with examples, and finally, a type that involves passages followed by a semi-passage that contains an important idea that you have to fuse them together somehow and present a very comprehensive answer based mostly on the second, shorter prompt rather than the longer passage. So we'll give you the preparation for those, and then the essay training, the important part for those of you who are shooting for Hanyang University, especially DIS and English Literature Department. And then Dongguk University, by the way, this year, this 2017 academic year, fortunately, they have this business management department having 20 spots to offer for the applicants. And so you can prepare for that. It's supposed to be a little easier, less time pressuring. They give you 100 minutes to write, and the passages are given in Korean language. So some of you may feel much more comfortable with that, although some of you actually may not be able to do it actually because you feel so shaky about having to read and comprehend a Korean passage. And that's understandable for those of you who lived abroad for so many years. Now, for ISED, there are 2 types mainly, the data analysis kind, and then inquisitive mind, explorative mind that asks you to make a judgment and offer some suggestive ideas about what to do or what not to do, especially in setting up some science-related or environment-related policies, which were the kinds of questions that have been coming out for the last couple of years at ISED. And then finally, last but not least, is the PQ training, the personal questions training, and also how to write your essays, your statement of purposes, the questions, especially important for probably the Yonsei University, which requires you to write 2 essays, one main and the other supplemental one, shorter one, in English. This is the only school in Korea in this kind of admission programs that requires students to submit English essays. So we give you lots of insights, useful advice on how to approach it, how to frame your essay, how to set the theme, and how to present it, where to focus, and what kind of expressions that you can possibly use. And then finally, the appendix part, the simulated mock test for you to get ready for the actual test with the explanations on how the procedures take place. And then finally at the end, there are some recommendation letter samples too. Now this is provided for those of you who may have a teacher who is inexperienced in writing recommendation letters or who may be just too busy and pressured about it. So sometimes they ask you, not on infrequent occasions actually, I heard about teachers asking students to give them some ideas about how to write the recommendation letters, or how they sometimes ask the students in terms of regarding what kinds of contents that the students want to see or to have included in their recommendation letters. That's a really wonderful opportunity for you to ask your teacher what kind of letter to write or what kind of content or expressions to include in the letters. And these samples will give you and your teacher some very insightful ideas about what kinds of contents can be included in order to make the recommendation letters very appealing, very emotionally touching, possibly, and possibly making you an attractive applicant. Now, so let me just give you one sample. So like in this case, this is the part about PQ training. So which is chapter 5, part 5. Chapter 1 is about how to tackle or how to respond to the personal questions. The most basic one, by the way, is about the reasons why you are applying for this program. Reasons behind your application, basically. The reason why you decided to apply for this program. Now, you probably can't see this, so I'll just explain to you briefly. So you almost inevitably you may get this kind of question, especially if the interview type is mostly based on or focused on personal questions. Now, you can use the Stevens framework, what's called, dividing your ideas quickly into 3 areas, the emotional aspects, the realistic aspects, and the social or interpersonal aspect. So something like the fact that somehow you feel the emotional appeal, you're very attracted to the image of this university, you have always thought about this school as a prestigious and very academically oriented and very respectable school to go to. An excellent reputation and image in the society was very appealing to you. But you want to indicate the fact that that's not the main reason, of course. That's a very small part, but the practical reason is probably the most important, the factor that pushed you or led you to the application process. And that is the fact that you strongly believe that this program, maybe the IS program, English Literature program, or maybe EICC at WEDE, English for International Communication and Conference. Now, you strongly believe that coming into and going through the program properly, possibly with some internships included too in the process, will properly get you ready to face the tough competitions in the society, to be ready professionally in your future, and tremendously increase your chances of attaining success in life in ways that you consider to be very valuable, worthwhile. And also, probably you can quickly mention the social aspect too. You can indicate the fact that you strongly believe that this is the kind of program which has a group of people who are similar to you in their backgrounds, even the professors included. So cross-cultural, international backgrounds that they all have, and thus, by joining the diverse group with people from all over the world, you will be able to have a wonderful social networking opportunity that can turn out to be just as important or maybe even more important than your practical professional training or educational processes that you will experience in this program. As the old saying goes, as they say, it's not what you know, but who you know that can help you succeed, who knows? So maybe some of these people that you will be meeting and becoming friends with or became acquaintances or becoming possibly even some close mentor-protege relationship, like with some of the faculty members possibly, the relationships can be truly precious in your life. They can, at both personal and professional levels, even if they may not turn out to be really helpful, maybe you will at least emotionally benefit from them in terms of finding comfort or maybe finding some sense of guidance in them, through them. So you believe that this will be a wonderful place to be part of. And at the end, you probably want to briefly say that as a result, you're here and you really hope to get in, your sincere desire, your honest wish to get in, you can indicate at the end. That can make a small difference at the end by indicating your determination, your will, your desire to get in. So indicating that would be probably a way to ensure a positive overall impression at the end. So those kinds of tips, pieces of advice, and all kinds of insightful ideas are in this book. So I hope you will take advantage of it. I'm not saying though that this is some kind of a panacea or cure-all, of course not. But I can tell you that this is a very practical guidebook that you can have in the processes of preparing for, getting ready to take either the interview test or maybe the essay test, which can be very confusing and anxiety-producing processes. So I wish you good luck, and I hope to see you maybe in the online courses or offline courses, or maybe through this book at least. Okay, so thanks for listening, and I wish you all good luck.